Hollywood is the land of gossip, and what's a juicier story than an on-set meltdown? Keep watching to learn about a few of them, including the one between Lucy Liu and Bill Murray, where she got him fired after an on-set meltdown. Christian Bale. Christian had the misfortune of having his rage captured on audio tape. This made it one of the most well-known meltdowns in history. Director of photography Shane Hurlburt walked into the actor's line of sight on the Terminator Salvation set. He was met with a 4-minute-long tirade. The strangest part was that the Welsh actor used the American accent he'd put on for his character the entire time. The recording went viral when it leaked in 2009. Christian later apologized, and he and Shane continued working together for the rest of the film. Lindsey Lohan. Lindsey was another unfortunate actress whose on-set meltdown was caught on tape during the filming of Canyons. She didn't show up for the first day of shooting. She hadn't been learning her lines and wouldn't leave her trailer for hours. She even had to beg to be let back on after being fired. The clip got posted on the gossip site TMZ. It was one of the first moments of erratic behavior that began the fall of her career. Tom Cruise. Modern celebrities can't seem to escape having their outbursts recorded. Tom Cruise's meltdown on the set of Mission Impossible 7 was leaked. It wasn't his first, but one of his most well-known. He saw two crew members standing too close to each other and felt the film's COVID-19 restrictions weren't being followed. He began swearing, saying anyone he saw doing that again would be gone. Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp's reputation hasn't been improving in recent years. He's been fired from a set more than once, such as during 2018's City of Lies. Location manager Greg "Rocky" Brooks told him they'd have to spend extra hours shooting at night in the streets of LA. Johnny was so angry he hit and verbally abused him, and the crew let him go. He even took the matter to court, but it was settled. Bette Davis. Feuds were just as common and bitter in old Hollywood as they are today. Bette Davis and Joan Crawford were one of the most famous. They couldn't hide their hatred when they were cast together in 1962's Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. They'd sabotage each other, and that scene where Betty's character slaps Joan's is for real. Accounts vary on how hard it was. Joan won in the end when Bette lost the Best Actress Oscar to Anne Bancroft, and Joan accepted it on her behalf. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn was another old Hollywood staple known for some bad behavior. She failed to read lines properly in one of her most famous films, Some Like It Hot. It allegedly took her 60 takes to say, "It's me, sugar." The director, Billy Wilder, decided to tape her lines onto furniture for her to read. She's also the reason the 1962 film Something's Got to Give was never finished. She'd often fail to show up or leave until she died 2 months later. David O. Russell. Directors can have on-set meltdowns too. The difference for David O. Russell is the end result. Some say David threw one of the film's extras to the ground after a fight, and George Clooney attacked him in return. In the end, George vowed never to work with him again. There's also dubious footage of him on the set of I Heart Huckabees showing him screaming and throwing things at Lily Tomlin. She claims they made up later and would work together again. The cast of The Island of Dr. Moreau. This film is one of the most cursed and least successful of all time. Almost every actor on set had some sort of meltdown or got into some sort of fight. Val Kilmer is now infamous for his behavior in films like Batman Forever and Red Planet, but Dr. Moreau was one of the earliest examples. He'd stopped production with unreasonable demands and allegedly burnt crew members with a cigarette. Marlon Brando also behaved in ways that made the screenwriter Ron Hutchinson want to pull his hair out. He said the actor was overcome by grief from the loss of his child and began acting unreasonably. He insisted on improving every line, demanded constant rewrites, wore an ice bucket to keep cool, which shows up in the final film, and more. Martin Sheen. Apocalypse Now is also famous for its troubled production that became the subject of a documentary called Heart of Darkness. Feuds and meltdowns on set were major contributors. Martin Sheen came on as a replacement, but he was under pressure and struggling with alcoholism at the time. He was drunk in the famous Saigon hotel room scene where he really punched through a mirror. He even suffered a heart attack while filming, and the stress of it all couldn't have helped. Wesley Snipes. The original Blade movie and the 2002 sequel made Wesley a lot of money and got his career back on track, so you'd think he'd be grateful to director David S. Goyer by the time the third movie, Blade Trinity, came out in 2004, but they clashed. He reportedly chased and threatened David on set. He wouldn't show up for shooting and would only communicate with Post-it notes by the end. It ended their relationship and helped make Blade Trinity a flop. Rip Torn. The 1970 film Maidstone may not be known for its quality, but it's famous for one thing. It'll go down forever as having one of the biggest, baddest on-set brawls ever. The cameras were rolling and caught the entire thing. Rip Torn hit his co-star, Norman Mailer, with a hammer, yelling that he needed to kill his character. A fight erupted, and Norman even bit off a part of Rip's ear. Norman's ex-wife Beverly and his children had to come to break up the fight. Another surprising thing is, it made the final cut of the film. Sean Connery. A poor experience on set can be enough to force an aging actor to retire. That's what happened to Sean Connery when he was 73 and joined the set of The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He couldn't get along with director Stephen Norrington. His anger exploded into a rant when the director canceled a whole day of filming because one elephant gun prop, quote, did not look quite right. He also asked to help edit the film's final cut, but was denied. They never worked together again, and neither the public nor the writer of the comic books it was based on took to the film. Shelly Duvall. Getting an authentic portrayal of fear in a horror film shouldn't require a torturous shoot. This is unfortunately what happened to Shelly Duvall in The Shining. Director Stanley Kubrick went overboard in using her to portray his vision. He would force her to cry for hours and weeks, do hundreds of takes of scenes, and berated and chastised her efforts. It was so horrible, she lost weight and her hair began to fall out. It was as if her entire performance was her having a meltdown, thanks to his horrible treatment. Gene Kelley. Gene Kelley is another infamous perfectionist who pushed his cast members to the brink. He made the production of 1952's Singin' in the Rain much less pleasant than it seemed. He demanded perfection from everyone, especially Debbie Reynolds. He would insult her dancing abilities, and Fred Astaire once found her cowering and sobbing under a piano after one of his tirades. Gene eventually apologized to her and admitted he was hard to work. Lucy Liu and Bill Murray. What actors need to remember is that on-set meltdowns and poor behavior can get you fired. That's what happened when Lucy Liu and Bill Murray joined forces in 2000's Charlie's Angels. Bill allegedly bullied Lucy and insulted her abilities with uncalled-for remarks. She eventually snapped and attacked him in a rage. Bill was replaced by Bernie Mac in the sequel. Lucy has no regrets about speaking her mind to him. Bill alleges she was the one being unprofessional. Whatever the truth, they won't work together again, but they don't have an ongoing feud and try to be civil when they see each other. This was not the first time Bill's gotten into an on-set fight. He clashed with Richard Dreyfuss while filming 1991's What About Bob? He was drunk and put his face next to his co-star and started screaming. He threw an ashtray at him but missed. Producer Laura Zishkin also claims he threw her into a lake after they quarreled. Now it's time to hear from you. Which one of these on-set meltdowns was most surprising to hear about? Let us know in the comments section below.